Nikolaevich Tolstoy was born on September 9, 1828 in Yasnaya Polyana, Russia, into a noble family. He lost his mother when he was 1.5 years old and his father when he was 9 years old. He was raised by relatives at home. He was a Russian critical realist writer, political thinker, and philosopher in the mid-19th century. He is widely regarded as one of the most outstanding writers in the history of world literature. Tolstoy's creative career lasted for 60 years. His works profoundly reveal various contradictions in Russian society. It has had a profound impact on Russian and world literature. Tolstoy's works include novels such as War and Peace, and Karenina, and Resurrection. These works are world famous for their grand ideas, profound thoughts, and superb artistic skills. These works profoundly reveal the complexity of human nature, the contradictions of society, and the twists and turns of personal destiny. His literary achievements are not only reflected in the delicate portrayal of character psychology and social reality, he also conveys his profound thoughts on moral, religious, and philosophical issues through his works. In addition to literary creation, Tolstoy was also an active educational reformer and moral thinker. His advocacy of non-violence and personal inner moral perfection influenced readers and thinkers around the world. In terms of personal life, Tolstoy married Sofia Andreevna in 1862. The two have 13 children. Their married life had an important influence on Tolstoy's creation. In his later years, Tolstoy experienced a profound change in his thinking. He gave up the aristocratic life, and he turned to a simple lifestyle and devoted himself to social reform and education. On November 20th, 1910, he died of pneumonia at Ostapovo Station. He died at the age of 82. His body was buried in the forest of Yasnaya Polyana. No words were left on the tombstone, symbolizing his lifelong pursuit of equality and humility. Being loved and loving others are the same happiness, and once you get it, it is enough to enjoy it for a lifetime. He who spoils his stomach always complains about his food. So it is with him who is dissatisfied with his life. There is a terrible bestiality in human nature. It is even more terrible if this bestiality is not revealed, but hidden deep beneath the so-called poetic appearance. As long as a person can forget himself and love others, he will not be psychologically unbalanced. He is a happy and perfect person. Time is like Siberian spring, beautiful but short. If you understand everything, you will forgive everything. Friendship is like a pot of boiling water. Once it is removed from the stove, it will gradually cool down. For a person who is immersed in mental work, if he does not move his limbs regularly, it will be extremely painful. Struggle is the meaning of life. A person is like a fraction. His actual talent is the numerator, and his self-evaluation is the denominator. The larger the denominator, the smaller the value of the fraction. If a girl wants to marry a rich man, it is not love. Property is the most insignificant thing. Only one who can withstand the pain of separation is true love. There are millions of people, and there are millions of hearts. Naturally, there are millions of hearts, and there are millions of kinds of love. Life is the light of man. Books are nourishment for all mankind. The ideal book is the key to wisdom. Everyone has flaws, Just like an apple that has been bitten by God, some people have bigger flaws precisely because God particularly likes their fragrance. You don't grow up when no one says no to you. Happy families have the same happiness, while unhappy families have their own misfortunes. Everyone wants to change the world, but no one wants to change themselves. People live for hope, because with hope, people have the courage to live. There is something deep in everyone's soul that only he understands. Love cannot be expressed in words. It can only be expressed with all of life. Eating is beneficial only when you are hungry, and interacting with others is beneficial only when you are loving. Wealth is not a permanent friend, but friends are permanent wealth. Without the storm, the sail is nothing more than a rag. Life is not a game. Therefore, we do not have the right to give up it just by our own will. Can you do it? Be bold, but not impatient. Quick, but not frivolous. Active, but not frivolous. Obey your superiors, but not flattery. Be responsible, but not self-willed. Win without being arrogant. Enjoy success without showing off. Be self-respecting, but not arrogant. Forthright, but not deceiving. Strong, but not pedantic. Lively, but not frivolous. Straightforward, but not naive. Happy people are all the same, and unhappy people are all unhappy in their own way. Life is not a pleasure, but a very heavy work. The mission of mankind is to strive for perfection through self-improvement. Oddly enough, this acknowledgement of one's own despicability is painful, but at the same time it makes one happy and at ease. We must always forgive everyone, and we must forgive others countless times, because no one in the world is sinless. No one does not need forgiveness, and therefore no one has the power to punish or correct others. When living with others, don't forget what you learned when you were alone. And when you are alone, think carefully about the truths you draw from your interactions with others. When the water is full, it overflows. When it says it's profitable, it's a loss. This world has always been more beautiful, not the most beautiful. The moment closest to perfection is the moment easiest to move towards the opposite. The less a man gives to others, and the more he demands of himself, the worse it is. Compared with the height of the soul, everything in the world seems so humble. True genius has two shoulders. One shoulder is moral and the other is aesthetic. If the moral shoulder is raised too high, then the aesthetic one is lowered. Such a genius is a genius on the paranoid end. Love is like a prairie fire burning brightly, and emotion completely controls reason. Only love can make marriage holy, and only a marriage sanctified by love is a true marriage. No one thinks that to admit greatness that does not conform to the standards of right and wrong is nothing more than to admit his own worthlessness and infinite despicability. All self-interested lives are irrational and animal lives. The so-called big figures in historical events are actually just labels for naming events. The so-called life is constantly changing. It is the weakening of physical life and the strengthening and expansion of soul life. No one is satisfied with his own property, but everyone is satisfied with his own intelligence. Wherever there is a court, there are evil things happening. The extent to which people live their lives according to their own ideas and the extent to which they obey the ideas of others is one of the major differences between people. The human body is limited by its physical strength, but the spirit is infinitely free. If you love someone and want her to love you, then you must fill your heart with love so that she can feel it. Love is to choose a man or a woman from among many people and then never pay attention to the behavior of other people of the opposite sex. True love can only come after giving up personal happiness. Happiness is in finding the truth, not in discovering it. Courage is the inevitable result of intelligence and a certain degree of education. Genius refers to a person who is unusually patient. All violence can make the other party submit without a struggle, but it cannot make the other party obey. People commit sin, but the devil justifies sin. There cannot be a great man in the mind of a slave, because a slave has a slave understanding of the word great. It is sad to have no money, but even sadder to have too much money. Do your best to fulfill your obligations, and you should know how valuable you are. In communication, people face parts and groups, but when alone, people face the whole and the source of all things. The greatest truths are the most ordinary truths. It is a crime to be separated from work. If evil people can gather together and become a force, then kind, righteous, and bright people should do the same. A bad behavior only paves the way for other bad things, while bad thoughts keep people sliding down this path. Life is not an easy pleasure, but a heavy burden. Human happiness lies in life, and life lies in labor. Determination is power. Confidence is success. Everyone's life should be restricted by certain laws and regulations. When embarking on a journey or making changes in life, people who are able to consider their own behavior usually have a serious attitude. At this time, it is usually to examine the past and plan for the future. The more difficult the environment is, the more firm perseverance and confidence are needed, and the greater the harm of slacking off. Doing good requires hard work, but doing evil requires even more effort. There are only two sources of human evil, namely idleness and superstition. There are only two virtues, work and wisdom. No one is satisfied with his own wealth, but everyone is satisfied with his own wisdom. There are aspects of fantasy that are better than reality. There are also aspects of reality that are better than fantasy. Complete happiness will be the union of the former and the latter. If you still have time to think before speaking, then think about whether you need to speak. Is what you are about to say hurtful? A true psychopath undoubtedly sees signs of insanity in others, but does not acknowledge his own insanity. War is a state in which the most despicable and corrupt people compete with each other for power. The value of life is not measured by time, but by depth. As long as you develop the habit of not blaming others, you will find that the ability to love grows in your soul and your life will become better. Peace is the highest material happiness of human society, just like health is the highest material happiness of individuals. Ignorance is not scary. What is scary is the wrong idea. It is better to know nothing than to know false truth. When you are with someone, don't forget what you discovered when you were thinking alone, when you were meditating alone. Remember what you learned when you communicated with others. People often regard the satisfaction of desires as happiness. No matter what I want, I know from the moment I think about it, whether I can satisfy this desire or not, the final result will still be false. Thousands of people are still busy making a living, but they have never doubted the meaning of life. That hour you put away without using it most effectively can never come back. Pure and complete sorrow is as impossible as pure and complete joy. What is needed for successful teaching is not coercion, but stimulating students' desire. Not knowing is not terrible and harmful. No one can know everything. What is terrible and harmful is not knowing and pretending to know. Work is an indispensable condition in human life, and labor is the real source of human wealth. When difficulties arise, some people soar to the sky while others fall to the ground and cannot get up. There are 3 characteristics of smart people. First, they do what they advise others to do. Second, they never do things that go against nature. Third, they tolerate the weaknesses of those around them. Integrity, while not doing good, is the absence of evidence of sin. To be true confidence, you must trust each other. In order to live happily, we should believe in the possibility of happiness. It is every man's duty to protect an insulted woman. Do not regard knowledge as a crown for decoration, nor as a cow for milking. When you realize that you are a humble person, you are no longer a humble person. What matters is not the quantity of knowledge, but the quality of it. Some people know a lot, but don't know the most useful things. The right path is this: learn from what your predecessors have done, and then move forward. A man must devote all his strength to efforts to better himself, and must not waste his strength on anything else. Choose what you like and love what you choose. Luck is not always doing what you hope to do, but always hoping to achieve the purpose of what you do. If you want to understand something, you must first admit your ignorance. I firmly believe that nothing can have such an amazing impact on a person's development than a person's appearance. Such people are brave because they do what they should. Anything is better than hypocrisy and deception. Ropes are better when they are long. Words are better when they are short. If a student learns in school that he cannot create anything, then his life will always be imitation and plagiarism. Simplicity is a necessary condition for beauty. Please remember that the more difficult the environment, the more perseverance and confidence are needed, and the greater the harm of slacking off. A person who can win universal respect is not because of his prominent position, but because of his consistent words and deeds and his indomitable spirit. Reason often becomes a slave to sin and excuses it. Money is the new slavery. What makes it different from the old-style slavery system is that there is no human relationship or personal contact with the slaves. It is impossible for an individual to be happy without society, just as it is impossible for a plant to survive without the land and be thrown into the desert. Ideals are guiding lights. Without ideals, there is no firm direction. Without direction, there is no life. The elegant man is the true king of life. Life without vanity is almost non-existent. Today is life, the only life you can be sure of. If a person does not have enthusiasm, he will achieve nothing, and the basis of enthusiasm is responsibility. Labor can arouse people's creativity. The power developed by one person with conviction is greater than that of 99 people who are only interested.